Dele Giwa said, one life lost in cold blood is as gruesome as millions lost in a pogrom. Our hearts goes out to the victims. So far, we have recorded 32 deaths. 42 were brought in from Gaza. About 14 have been discharged. About 26 are currently receiving attention. And I want to use this forum to most sincerely register our profound gratitude to the Borno State government, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the State Emergency Management Agency and ICRC for rising up to the challenges of the times and giving their best in terms of support. The hearts of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is with the victims, and he specifically instructed us to come and offer our condolences and commiserations to the victims of this incident. We are here with the Director General of NEMA, with the Minister of Agriculture, with the Minister of Transportation, and of course, the Chief Whip of the Senate is a son of the soil from Gaza, so he was here since yesterday. And the acting governor had been working around the clock to provide succor and support to the victims.
Welcome back. Yes, we've got Mr. Gabs Katia here with us. He's the project coordinator of Gaza Refugees Resettlement Initiative, to speak to us about some of these issues that we do have out there. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, it does raise a lot of concern for a lot of people, but for you, you're an indigenous of the area, so you do know the place inside out. So what kind of information are you getting at the moment about what happened?
The information is just what you have heard. Gaza is under siege by Boko Haram fighters. That's the information all over.
But in terms of the approach, the coordination, plans to get a solution, there are several people who are divided about how they should go about it. But yes, everyone agrees something needs to be done. But from your perspective, what do you think about how we're approaching this to ensure that this becomes history? No more bombings there.
Yeah, I think just, is it by coincidence? On 26th of last month, that's June, we wrote to Mr. President to say the best thing to do in this situation is to allow the stakeholders, the people of Gaza, to come together and say enough is enough. Just as you have said, the president said wants to retrieve the country for everybody in his renewed hope agenda. So we were inspired by that renewed hope agenda to write to the president to say, okay, we appreciate your intention. What we need to do now is constitute stakeholders committee, throw this problem back to them, let them solve it by themselves, because it has to be, there must be an insider before all these things happen. But if they are brought together in a kind of town hall and say, enough is enough, let us do something about our situation, I think this is how to go about it.
I want to be able to pick on something you just said. Now, you wrote to the president before the attack?
On 26th.
So that was before the attack?
Before the attack.
Why?
Just to suggest to him, you know, before then, there was a letter by the refugees from Cameroon. The refugees in Cameroon were inspired by the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President. Then they said 10 years is enough. We've been in Cameroon for 10 years.
Okay, the Nigerians there.
The Nigerians, from most of them are from Gaza.
Okay.
120,000 of them. So wrote a letter. Mr. President, you are welcome. we have seen your agenda, the Renewed Hope agenda. So we are inspired by that so that you do something about our situation.
I mean, but it's actually pretty strange, the fact that they had just written to him on the 26th, the conversations had just started, and then an attack follows immediately afterwards. But I want to be able to find out, you're working with the Resettlement Initiative.
Yes.
So for Goza residents who have been displaced.
Yes.
Why are you in Abuja? Why aren't you doing this in Borno?
We don't have... if you go, half of Goza population are here in Nasarawa and Abuja.
So what you're saying is that the displaced people from the terrorist attacks have moved to Nasarawa and Abuja.
And all over the country.
So your office plans, what your organization does is to plan their resettlement. Resettlement where?
All over. Like we have about 5 camps in Nasarawa. So whoever is willing to come to Nasarawa, it's voluntary. Whoever is willing to come to Nasarawa, we find a space for him, we find what to do, then we assist him or her.
Okay. So when last did you go to Goza?
It's about 2 years.
So it's been 2 years since you went to Goza?
Yes.
When the attacks happened, were you able to contact anyone there? Were you able to get information as to what has happened?
We are in contact all over. We are in contact with brothers. Some of our brothers are still there.
So when they said these terrorists came in from Polka and from the Mandara Mountains, talk to us a little bit, because you're from there, although you've not been there in 2 years. Talk to us a bit about the security in that area. That Mandara Mountains. We keep hearing that there is no security anywhere in those areas. What's going on?
What is happening is that when you measure population per square kilometer, but in Goza we measure our population per cubic kilometers.
Why?
Because you have the height when you measure this. It's length times breadth times height. That's what cubic. So the height of the mountain.
You also consider that land mass?
Yes, accommodate a lot of people.
So that road up like that, it's also considered land mass?
Yes. So accommodate a lot of people. These terrorists found their way into the mountains. So, and displace all the indigents, or maybe part of them are also indigents. But presently, it is occupied by the terrorists. The whole mountain is occupied by the terrorists.
What about security? Because military operations, the bulk of our budget goes into security, into the war against terrorism. Are there no military formations around that area?
There are military formations, but they are not enough. They are not enough to police the whole area. Like I was telling you, you have the height, you have the length, you have the breadth. So the military personnel posted there are overwhelmed. And there are also the aspect of the beneficiaries of the situation who will not want this thing to finish.
Who are these beneficiaries? You know them?
You could be one Chamberlain. You could be one, because as long as you want something, you want revenue. If you are greedy, any human being that has the element of that greed could be a beneficiary of what is happening if he is benefiting from the situation. So that's why I said you could be one.
This resettlement initiative that you work on, how do you get funding? How do you resettle people? How does this work?
So what happened is I retired as a director in the National Directorate of Employment. My first lump sum pension was what I started with. Built some houses as a camp. If you want, we can even go there. So I said, my brothers, first, before this thing happened, I was a director here in FCT, working. I built my house in Nasarawa State.
So you built the resettlement
I built
places
the
for them?
settlement for them.
Where, in Abuja?
In Nasarawa.
In Nasarawa?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is what happened. It's from my lump sum.
Yeah, you said so earlier.
Yeah.
So, but now, after you built it, so when they come in, you put them in these houses and then...
When it is...
But there has to be a lot of funding.
Yeah.
So where does that funding come from? It can't be that same pension money.
What happened now, for example, before the people wrote letter from Cameroon, they came to me. They said, we learned that you are resettling people, you are receiving people, so we are here we are. Do it for us too. I said, there's a limit to what I can do. About 120,000 of you, I cannot do that. What I do is individual person, I resettle him, or I beg any close friend who understands what I'm doing and assist. But on a large scale like this, I will not be able to do it.
So let's talk about the relation. You said, you've mentioned it, you go to people, the people help you out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the relationship between people like you who run these sort of NGOs across the country and the Borno state government.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of relationship between both of you?
Or
are you acting in isolation?
Well, we are just acting in isolation. We've never been able to come together and synergize.
You know, yesterday as well, when we looked at this matter, we had guests who also thought that they are probably not just faith columnists, but persons who want this to continue. But is this more or less, even though he said he had his own info, so is it a general feeling amongst residents in Goza that there are several people who are benefiting and so don't want it to continue, or that is something they can actually say, we have our facts that this is why this is continuing?
Well, the fact that I can tell you is general. I was driving from here to Jalingo. My car broke down in Okari. I met a coffin maker. So I came out of the car, asked my driver to go and fix the car. So I stayed with the coffin maker. Then I looked, there were many coffins. I asked the coffin maker, I said, where are there so many coffins? He said, back as well, there's no market for it. So, your market for coffins is somebody's death. Then all of us laughed. I made this analogy, Chamberlain, is you cannot say people are not benefiting from this. You cannot say these are people that are benefiting from it. So, definitely, those who are at the forefront of it will benefit from it. So, if I get your question right, that we cannot pinpoint, it is not to say these are people that are benefiting. If we want to do that, then those politicians, the politicians who are always elected from 2011, there has been no election in Borno. Is what they do is appointment.
No election?
No,
they said they win
real election. Real election, there was no election.
That's what the issue is. People keep saying these things, but you don't have actual proof. Do you have actual proof? That's what Chamberlain is trying to say.
Yes.
When you say people are benefiting from this situation, and they will, of course, it's something you can say, but do you have proof? If you're able to pinpoint and say such and such a person is benefiting from this, like you just mentioned that there hasn't been an election, these are not things that you can just say without having proof. If you're able to pinpoint and say this happened, then maybe people will take you people a little bit more seriously, as opposed to just saying these things and going on with them.
I like the way you put it. Let me start. Before election, what is the electoral guideline says? People must be there in their homes, there must be wards, there must be registered for party men, and the party should present the candidate for the election, and all those procedures. Can you now tell me in honesty, those procedures are followed?
Can you prove that they were not followed?
We are not at home.
Then you can't prove it, sir.
We are not, there is nobody at home. So how can you say you have conducted election in a place where there are no people? They are only in camp. In that camp, you don't have even political party who is belonging to this party or belonging to that party.
You cannot say that there is no one in Borno State. We are looking at Goza right now. People were killed at a wedding.
In Goza.
There were people killed at a wedding. So which means that people attended the wedding, which means that people are there.
In the camp, the whole town is the majority of Goza people live in how many places? Pilka, camp in Pilka. Goza town itself, although they have made, it is almost like camp because you cannot go out 2 kilometers of Goza outside the town. You can go out 2 kilometers. So what do you call that place? Such a place. You are being caged in one place. So if you are caged in one place and now you are being fed in that cage, somebody tells you that, yes, I'm in politics. Yeah.
I want to be able to move on to other issues that are happening in your state. And it's very unfortunate what's happened in Borno and continues to happen. You have a governor that many people believe in many ways has done a lot with resettlement. In fact, I remember there was a Muslim cleric that came from, I think from Zimbabwe, Mufti Menk, where he came back, he did a whole video where he was showing resettlement houses, schools are being rebuilt, people are being moved away from their IDP camps back to their homes. The whole resettlement business was a very important move of Professor Babagana Zulum.
Yes.
How would you rate those successes? Also bearing in mind that the military has told us yesterday that they had made a lot of successes and that this attack, like the president said, is isolated and some way of making themselves feel like they are more relevant and, you know, basically make us not feel like the military has made the gains that they have made over the past few months. What do you make of that?
It's just what you have. I'll just take what you have said to be true. That's all. I just take what you have said to be true, and yet these things are happening. So you make it for yourself.
You know, when you said that, I had to check again the figures, the latest figures from Borno.
Yeah.
The local government election that held this year.
Yeah.
In January.
Yes.
Where the APC won all the elections, 27 local government areas, 312 councils.
Yes.
And so the candidates polled 110 votes to defeat our closest rival, which is PDP, there are 2,478. And the impression you give us is that all of these figures are allocated, fabricated.
So,
is that what you say?
If are not fabricated, if are not allocated, I told you, somebody who is caged under siege, how do you go to him and say vote for another person? The person that is feeding you, the cage owner, is the one that is going to win the votes. You give him your vote.
Okay, but you know, earlier you said that the army, you used the word overwhelmed, but yesterday the army, if not today, released a statement. Defense headquarters, they described the recent terrorist attack in Goza as a desperate attempt to, these are their words now, dispel reports of their decline, prove a point that they are not weak, and to create panic to the general public. And the statement goes on to say that troops remain undeterred in their pursuit of peace despite the bomb attack by the terrorists who killed 20 and injured 52. And so this is a sharp contrast from what you say. So they say, look,
what contrast?
We're really there. We're not overwhelmed. They are declining, so they just detonated this bomb to give people the impression that they are really active.
Still relevant.
Okay, you are now talking in terms of what I said.
They were overwhelmed.
They are overwhelmed and they cannot be everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact is still there, that they can't be everywhere. There are certain places that the armies cannot go there.
Like where?
Like you mentioned the places about two wards on the mountains and one on the plain. Gavaga Palawa ward, Chikrej ward. These places are still under control. These terrorists are having their market, doing everything they want.
So when the government says we have technically won the war against insurgency, you don't agree with that at all, do you?
Well, we have been saying this all over, that it is not true. So why do Nigerians and the journalists want to repeat all these things? That those are political statements. And you continue to ask everybody, the truth about that is it is a political statement. Everybody wants to say, I have done my best. So that is what we hear.
Is it true that residents of Goza, something that you have a lot of residents who are joining Boko Haram because for them it's lucrative, and so they find it difficult to leave, because if they leave, they keep asking what are they going to come back to? Is that right?
That is true. The first batch of repentant Boko Haram, 95 of them were brought to my office. I was still a director in National Directorate of Employment. The training was in Gombe. So I interfaced with them because we were asked by the federal government then to talk to them, to train them to embrace skills. So National Orientation Agency and NDE were asked to go and be talking to them. The first batch, 95 of them, 70 of them were from Goza.
Where are they now?
We agreed, before we were allowed to be talking to them, you had to take an oath that when you finish with them, you don't have to say, I saw this person in camp is one of those repentant Boko Haram. So
to avoid stigmatization of them. So, but they're just out there now.
They're just out there, and let me tell you something. There are some people who even went from my house to go and fight according to him, we are going to take war booty. So they think this is an activity where you can get something.
Well, what do you mean? They left your house to join Boko Haram?
Yes.
And fight for Boko Haram or against Boko Haram?
Yes.
Which one, for or against?
No, fight. They became Boko Haram fighters. Because when you say Boko Haram, there are different things.
Sorry.
Tell us.
So the repentant ones are the ones you're saying went back to Boko Haram?
No. Then we were staying together with them here. Let me...
This is a different set.
Yeah.
From his, he said from your house.
Yeah, from my house. And they have even come back. They're all over here, leaving their parents there. You see, what people don't understand about this Boko Haram thing, there are a lot of myths around it. Anybody can be that Boko Haram. And we are now answering that your question. It's not, okay, let me just say, Boko Haram is different from Boko Haram fighters. What we have said all over is Boko Haram, Boko Haram. Boko Haram is different from Boko Haram fighters. The terrorists we see are Boko Haram fighters. They are not Boko Haram. The Boko Haram are those who are using the Western education to get money for themselves. So they are out there to fight them. If Western education has just given you an opportunity to take what you are supposed to work for the public, and then you appropriate it to yourself, then Boko, that Western education, which is Boko Haram, is what do you call Haram? It's forbidden. It's forbidden. So we must fight it.
So, but what do you call those who perhaps say left your house, went to fight, and then come back? What are they? What do we call them?
They are repentant Boko Haram, and then they just had a stint into that business, if you call it, means of livelihood.
So it's a means of livelihood. That's how they see it.
That is it.
Wow.
Actually puts a big question mark on this resettlement, this repentant Boko Haram issue, a question that many Nigerians have had over the years about it.
Well, we'll have to go. We're out of time on this one. Gavs Katia is the program coordinator, Goza Refugees Resettlement Initiative. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Zembale. Thank you.
Well, there you go. That is it today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Usof. Goodbye.
Have a great day ahead. I'm Kayla Magwa.
Thank you.